My name is Loretta Me Johnson. I am 52 years old now, and I live in a beautiful house on the coast of California. I drive a fancy car. I own 3 businesses. I have everything a woman could ever want. But 18 years ago, I had nothing. I was a broken woman standing on the side of a dusty highway in the middle of nowhere. I watched my husband's car disappear into the distance. I heard his friends laughing as they drove away, and I heard my husband's voice saying words that would change my life forever. "Let's see if she can make it back," he yelled out the window. Then they were gone. They left me stranded in another state with no money, no phone, and no way to get home. My own husband did this to me. The man I had loved for 7 years. The man I had given everything to. That night, I made a promise to myself. I would survive. I would rise. And one day, I would make them all pay for what they did to me. 18 years later, I kept that promise. You want to know how a woman who was left with nothing became someone with everything? You want to know how I got my revenge on the man who threw me away like garbage? Then sit back and listen to my story. Because what happened when we finally met again was something none of them saw coming. Not my ex-husband, Darryl. Not his best friend, Kevin. Not any of the men who laughed at me that terrible night. They had no idea that the woman they would meet 18 years later was the same skinny, scared girl they had abandoned on Highway 15. But I knew. I remembered every single face, every laugh, every cruel word. And I was ready. Before I tell you the rest, I want to know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you want to hear how I destroyed my ex-husband's entire world, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to this channel. Trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Now let me take you back to the beginning. Let me show you who I was before that horrible night on the highway. I met Darryl Thompson when I was 25 years old. I was working as a waitress at a little diner in Memphis, Tennessee. I had grown up poor. My mama raised me and my 3 sisters all by herself after my daddy left. We never had much, but Mama always told us that God had big plans for us. "Loretta," she would say, "you are going to do great things one day. Just you wait and see." I believed her. I worked hard in school. I got good grades. But when Mama got sick, I had to drop out of college to help take care of her. I started working at the diner to pay the bills. I thought it would only be for a little while. But 1 year turned into 2, then 3, then 4. By the time I was 25, I had given up on my dreams. I thought this was going to be my life forever, serving pancakes and coffee to strangers, coming home tired with aching feet, watching other people live the life I wanted. Then Darryl walked into the diner one Saturday morning. He was tall and handsome with a bright smile. He wore nice clothes and had a gold watch on his wrist. He looked like money, and in my little corner of Memphis, that meant something. "Hey, beautiful," he said when I came to take his order. "What's a pretty girl like you doing in a place like this?" I should have known right then that he was trouble, but I was young and lonely and tired of struggling. So when he asked for my number, I gave it to him. When he asked me on a date, I said yes. When he told me he loved me after just 3 months, I believed him. Darryl was a truck driver. He made good money, or at least that's what he told me. He always had cash in his pocket. He bought me nice things. He took me to restaurants I had only dreamed of eating at. For the first time in my life, I felt like a princess. My mama didn't like him, though. "There's something off about that man," she told me one night. "He smiles too much. He talks too sweet. Men like that always got something to hide." "Mama, you're just being protective," I said. "Darryl is a good man. He treats me right." Mama shook her head slowly. She was sitting in her favorite chair by the window, wrapped in the old quilt I had made for her. She was getting weaker every day from her sickness, but her eyes were still sharp. "Baby girl, I've been on this earth a lot longer than you," she said. "I've seen men like Darryl before. They're all sunshine and roses in the beginning, but wait until the storm comes. That's when you'll see who he really is." I didn't listen to her. I wish I had. Darryl and I got married 6 months later. It was a small wedding at the courthouse. Darryl said we didn't need a big fancy ceremony. He said all that mattered was that we loved each other. "We'll have a real wedding later," he promised. "When I save up enough money, I'll give you the wedding of your dreams, baby." That wedding never happened, just like a lot of things Darryl promised. The first year of our marriage was good. Darryl was sweet and kind. He helped around the house. He brought me flowers for no reason. He made me feel loved. But slowly, things started to change. It started with little comments. He would say things like, "You sure you need that second helping of food, Loretta? You're getting a little thick around the middle." Or, "Why do you always wear your hair like that? It makes your face look fat." At first, I thought he was just joking, but the comments kept coming. Every day there was something new to criticize. My clothes, my cooking, the way I talked, the way I walked. Nothing I did was ever good enough. Then came the friends. Darryl had a group of buddies he had known since high school. There was Kevin, who was loud and mean. There was Jerome, who never said much but always had a nasty look on his face. And there was Raymond, who laughed at everything Kevin said like it was the funniest thing in the world. These men would come to our house every weekend. They would drink beer and play cards and talk trash about their wives and girlfriends, and Darryl would join right in. "Man, Loretta can't cook worth nothing," he would say, and they would all laugh. "I don't know why I married her, should have stayed single." I would hear them from the kitchen, where I was cleaning up the mess they made. My heart would break into 1,000 pieces every time, but I never said anything. I just kept my head down and tried to be a good wife. "Maybe if I try harder, he'll love me again," I told myself. "Maybe if I lose weight, or cook better, or dress nicer, things will go back to the way they were." But things only got worse. By our 3rd year of marriage, Darryl had stopped pretending to be nice. He would yell at me for no reason. He would come home late and not tell me where he had been. He would take money from our savings and spend it on his friends. "That's my money," he would say when I asked about it. "I'm the one working. You just sit around the house all day." That wasn't true. I was still working at the diner, sometimes double shifts. But Darryl made me give him my whole paycheck. He said he was saving it for our future, but our savings account never seemed to grow. I thought about leaving. I really did. But every time I got close to walking out the door, something would stop me. Sometimes it was fear. Where would I go? How would I survive on my own? Sometimes it was hope. Maybe things would get better. Maybe the old Darryl would come back. And sometimes it was Darryl himself. He had a way of knowing when I was about to leave. He would suddenly become sweet again. He would buy me gifts and tell me he was sorry. He would promise to change. "I know I've been hard on you, baby," he would say with tears in his eyes. "I'm just stressed about work, but I'm going to do better. I love you so much. Please don't leave me." And I would believe him every single time. My mama passed away during our 4th year of marriage. That was the hardest time of my life. I felt so alone. My sisters had all moved away to different states. I had no close friends because Darryl didn't like me spending time with anyone but him. All I had was my husband, and he couldn't even be bothered to comfort me. "Your mama was old and sick," he said when I cried at her funeral. "It was her time to go. Stop crying and get over it." Something inside me broke that day, but I still didn't leave. 3 more years passed, 3 more years of pain and tears and broken promises. By our 7th year of marriage, I was a shell of the woman I used to be. I had lost weight from stress. I had dark circles under my eyes from not sleeping. I had forgotten how to smile. Then came the trip. Darryl came home one night all excited. His friend Kevin was turning 40 years old. Kevin wanted to have a big birthday party in Las Vegas. All the guys were going, and Darryl wanted me to come too. I was surprised. Darryl never wanted to take me anywhere. He always said I would embarrass him in front of his friends. "Really?" I asked. "You want me to come?" Darryl smiled that smile I used to love. "Of course, baby. You're my wife. It wouldn't be right to go without you." I should have known something was wrong. Darryl being nice out of nowhere. That was always a bad sign. But I was so desperate for things to be good between us that I ignored the warning bells in my head. We drove to Las Vegas with Kevin, Jerome, and Raymond. It was a long trip from Memphis. We took turns driving. We stopped at rest areas and cheap motels along the way. The men laughed and joked the whole time. I sat quietly in the back seat, trying to make myself as small as possible. I didn't want to say anything that would make them angry. Las Vegas was everything I had heard about and more. The bright lights, the huge hotels, the sounds of slot machines everywhere. It was like a whole different world. We stayed at a nice hotel on the Strip. Kevin's family had money, and he was paying for everything. I thought maybe this trip would be a chance for me and Darryl to reconnect. Maybe being away from home would help us find the love we had lost. I was so wrong. The first 2 days of the trip were terrible. The men spent all their time gambling and drinking. They barely slept. They barely ate. And they barely acknowledged that I existed. I spent most of my time alone in the hotel room. I watched TV. I ordered room service because I was too scared to explore the city by myself. I waited for Darryl to come back and spend time with me. He never did. On the third night, something happened that would change everything. I was walking through the casino looking for Darryl. He had been gone for hours, and I was getting worried. I finally found him at a blackjack table. He was laughing and drinking with his friends, and sitting right next to him was a woman. She was young and pretty with long hair and lots of makeup. She was leaning on Darryl's shoulder like she belonged there, and Darryl had his arm around her waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. I stood there frozen. My heart felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed it. Darryl looked up and saw me watching. For a split second, I saw panic in his eyes, but then his face changed. He got this cold, hard look that I had never seen before. He whispered something to the woman. She looked at me and laughed. Then she got up and walked away, swinging her hips as she went. Darryl stood up and walked over to me. I thought he was going to apologize. I thought he was going to explain. Maybe she was just a friend. Maybe I had misunderstood what I saw. "Why are you out here?" Darryl asked. His voice was low and angry. "I told you to stay in the room." "I was worried about you," I said. "Who was that woman?" Darryl grabbed my arm hard. Not hard enough to leave a bruise, but hard enough to hurt. He leaned in close so only I could hear him. "That's none of your business," he said. "Now go back to the room before you embarrass me any more than you already have." Tears filled my eyes. "Darryl, please, just talk to me." I said go back to the room. His voice was so loud that people around us turned to look. I was so humiliated that I turned and ran. I ran all the way back to the hotel room. I threw myself on the bed and cried until I had no more tears left. That night, I made a decision. When we got back to Memphis, I was going to leave Darryl. I didn't care anymore about being scared or alone. Anything had to be better than this. But I never got the chance. The next morning, something terrible happened. Something that would strand me in a state far from home with no way to get back. And it all started with Kevin knocking on our hotel room door. The knock on the door came at 7 in the morning. I was already awake. I had not slept much after what happened the night before. My eyes were puffy from crying. My head hurt from thinking too much. Darryl was passed out on the other bed. He had come back to the room around 4 in the morning, smelling like alcohol and cheap perfume. He did not even look at me. He just fell on the bed with his clothes still on and started snoring. The knock came again, louder this time. "Yo, Darryl, wake up, man, we got to go." It was Kevin's voice. I got up and opened the door. Kevin stood there with Jerome and Raymond behind him. They all looked tired but excited about something. "Where's Darryl?" Kevin asked, pushing past me like I was not even there. "He's sleeping," I said quietly. Kevin walked over to Darryl's bed and shook him hard. "Get up, man. Change of plans. We're leaving early." Darryl groaned and opened his eyes. What? What time is it?" "Time to go," Kevin said. "I just got a call from my cousin in Arizona. He's got tickets to some big fight tonight. Private event, VIP access. We got to leave now if we want to make it." Darryl sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. "Arizona? That's like 5 hours from here." "So what? It's going to be epic, man. Everyone who's anyone is going to be there. You coming or not? Daryl looked over at me for the first time that morning. His eyes were cold and empty. Then he looked back at Kevin and smiled. Yeah, I'm coming. Just give me 20 minutes to shower and pack. My heart dropped. What about me? I asked. Kevin laughed. It was a mean, ugly laugh. What about you? I mean, am I coming too? The three men looked at each other. Then they all started laughing like I had said the funniest joke in the world. Nah, this is a guys only thing, Kevin said. No women allowed. But how am I supposed to get home? I asked. We drove here together. I don't have a way back to Memphis. Daryl stood up and stretched. He did not even look worried. Figure it out, he said. Take a bus or something. A bus? Daryl, I don't have any money. You have all our money. Daryl sighed like I was being annoying. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled $20 bill. He threw it at me. It landed on the floor at my feet. There, that should be enough for a bus ticket. I stared at the $20 on the floor. A bus ticket from Las Vegas to Memphis cost way more than $20. Daryl knew that. He had to know that. Daryl, please, I begged. Don't leave me here, just take me with you. I'll stay in the car. I won't bother anyone, please. Something flashed in Daryl's eyes. For a moment, I thought I saw the man I had married 7 years ago. The man who had promised to love and protect me forever. But then it was gone, replaced by that cold, hard look. I said figure it out, he repeated. Then he walked into the bathroom and closed the door. I turned to Kevin, Jerome, and Raymond. They were all looking at me with smirks on their faces, like they were enjoying watching me beg. Please, I said to them, can one of you talk to him? I have nowhere to go. Kevin stepped closer to me. He was a big man, tall and heavy. He looked down at me like I was something dirty on the bottom of his shoe. Listen here, he said slowly. You ain't our problem, you're Daryl's problem, and seems like he don't want to deal with you right now. So I suggest you take that $20 and figure out how to get your skinny behind back to Memphis. Raymond laughed. Maybe she can walk, might do her some good. She could use the exercise. They all laughed again. My face burned with shame. The next hour was a blur of pain. I sat on the edge of the bed and watched Daryl pack his bag. He did not speak to me. He did not even look at me. It was like I was invisible. When he was ready to go, he walked to the door without saying goodbye. Daryl, I called out. My voice was shaking. Please don't do this, I'm your wife. He stopped at the door. His back was to me. For a long moment, he did not move. Then he turned around slowly. You want to know the truth, Loretta, he said. His voice was calm and cold. I never loved you. You were just convenient. A woman who would cook and clean and do whatever I told her to do. But now you're just dead weight, and I'm tired of carrying you. The words hit me like punches. Each one hurt more than the last. Tears streamed down my face, but I could not speak. Maybe some time alone will do you good, Daryl continued. Toughen you up, make you realize that the world doesn't owe you anything. Then he walked out the door. Kevin, Jerome, and Raymond followed him, laughing and talking like nothing had happened, like they had not just destroyed my whole world. I ran to the window and looked down at the parking lot. I watched them load their bags into the car. I watched them get in. I watched them drive away. And just like that, I was alone. I did not know what to do. I sat in that hotel room for hours, crying until my body hurt. My mind kept going over what Daryl had said. He never loved me. I was just convenient. Dead weight. Was that true? Had my whole marriage been a lie? Had I wasted 7 years of my life on a man who never cared about me at all? Around noon, there was a knock on the door. For a crazy moment, I thought it was Daryl coming back. Maybe he had changed his mind. Maybe he realized he had made a terrible mistake. But it was not Daryl. It was a hotel worker. Ma'am, checkout time was at 11, he said. Are you extending your stay? I blinked at him, confused. What? Check out. You need to pay for another night or leave the room. But my husband paid for the room. The worker looked at his clipboard. The room was paid for through last night. Someone from your party stopped by the front desk this morning and said you would be checking out today. Kevin, it had to be Kevin. He was the one paying for everything, and he had made sure to cut me off. I don't have money for another night, I admitted. My voice was barely a whisper. The worker looked at me with pity in his eyes. I'm sorry, ma'am, but you'll have to gather your things and leave. 20 minutes later, I was standing on the sidewalk outside the hotel with my small suitcase. The Las Vegas sun was hot and bright. People walked past me, laughing and having fun. They had no idea that my life had just fallen apart. I counted my money, $20. That was all I had in the world. $20 and a suitcase full of clothes. I found a pay phone and called my sister Patricia in Chicago. The call went to her answering machine. I left a message begging her to call me back. Then I tried my other sister Dorothy in Atlanta. Same thing, answering machine. I had no one. I was completely alone. I spent that night in the Las Vegas bus station. It was dirty and loud and scary. Strange people kept coming up to me, asking for money or trying to talk to me. I held my suitcase close and tried not to cry. The next morning, I used $5 to buy some food. Then I tried to figure out my options. A bus ticket to Memphis cost over $100. I only had $15 left. There was no way I could afford it. I thought about calling the police, but what would I tell them? My husband left me. That was not a crime. I thought about going to a shelter, but I did not know where any shelters were. I thought about asking strangers for help, but I was too scared and ashamed. So I started walking. I did not have a plan. I just knew I could not stay in Las Vegas. So I started walking east, toward home. Maybe I could hitchhike. Maybe I could find work along the way. Maybe something would happen to help me. For 3 days, I walked and hitched rides with truckers who took pity on me. I slept in rest areas and behind gas stations. I ate whatever I could find or afford with my little bit of money. On the 4th day, I was somewhere in Arizona. A trucker had dropped me off at a rest stop near the highway. He said he was turning south and could not take me any further. I sat on a bench and watched the cars go by. I was so tired. My feet hurt. My body ached. I had not showered in days. I probably looked like a homeless person. Maybe I was a homeless person now. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A car pulled into the rest stop. A car I recognized. It was Kevin's car. The same car that had driven away from the hotel 4 days ago. I ducked behind a trash can and peeked out. Sure enough, there was Kevin getting out of the driver's seat. Then Jerome and Raymond got out of the back. And finally, Darrell got out of the passenger side. They were all laughing and joking like they did not have a care in the world. Like they had not left a woman stranded with no way to get home. My first instinct was to run up to them, to beg Darrell to take me back, to plead with them to give me a ride home. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was fear, or maybe it was something else. A little voice in my head that said, "Watch and wait, see what happens." So I stayed hidden and watched. The men went into the rest stop building to use the bathroom. They were gone for about 10 minutes. When they came back out, they stood by the car talking. I could not hear everything they said, but I caught bits and pieces. "That fight was insane," Kevin said. "Best trip ever." "You know what the best part was?" Raymond asked. "Not having Loretta around complaining about everything." They all laughed. "For real, though," Jerome said. "How long you think it's going to take her to get home?" Darrell shrugged. "Who cares? Maybe she won't come back at all. That would make my life a lot easier." "You cold man," Kevin said with a grin, "but I respect it." My heart shattered into a million pieces. Darrell did not care if I ever made it home. He did not care if I lived or died. I meant nothing to him. The men got back in the car and drove away. They never knew I was there. They never knew I heard every word. I sat behind that trash can for a long time. I did not cry. I think I had run out of tears. I just sat there feeling empty inside. But then something strange happened. The emptiness started to fill up with something else, something hot and strong. Anger. For the first time in 7 years, I was angry. Not sad, not scared, angry. Angry at Darrell for lying to me all those years. angry at his friends for treating me like garbage, angry at myself for letting it happen. I stood up slowly. My legs were shaking, but not from fear, from rage. I am going to survive this, I said out loud. I am going to make something of myself, and one day I am going to make them all pay. I did not know how. I did not know when. But I made that promise to myself right there in that rest stop in Arizona. Then I started walking again. But this time I was not walking away from something. I was walking toward something, a new life, a new me. I just did not know it yet. 2 more days of walking and hitching rides brought me to a small town in New Mexico. I was completely broke now. I had not eaten in almost 2 days. I was dirty, tired, and weak. I saw a little church on the side of the road. It was old and worn down, but there was a sign out front that said, "All are welcome." I walked up the steps and pushed open the door. Inside, it was cool and quiet. Sunlight came through stained glass windows, making pretty colors on the wooden floors. An old woman was sitting in one of the pews. She had gray hair and kind eyes. When she saw me, she did not look scared or disgusted. She just smiled. "Well, hello there, child," she said. "You look like you could use some help." I could not hold it in anymore. I broke down crying right there in the doorway of that little church. All the pain and fear and anger came pouring out of me. The old woman got up and walked over to me. She put her arms around me and held me while I cried. "It's okay, baby," she said softly. "Whatever happened, you're safe now. The Lord brought you here for a reason." Her name was Mabel Washington. She was 73 years old and had lived in that small town her whole life. She ran a little boarding house for people who needed a place to stay. "I don't have any money," I told her. "I can't pay for a room." Mabel waved her hand like that was the silliest thing she had ever heard. "Child, I didn't ask you for money. I asked if you needed help. Now come on. Let's get you some food and a warm bed." That night, I slept in a real bed for the first time in almost a week. I had a full stomach for the first time in days, and I had something else I had not had in a long time. Hope. The next morning, Mabel sat me down at her kitchen table and asked me to tell her my story. So I did. I told her everything. About Darryl, about the trip to Las Vegas, about being left behind, about walking for days with no food or money. When I finished, Mabel was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. "Loretta," she said, "what happened to you was evil, pure evil. But the Lord has a way of turning evil into good. You just have to trust in Him and work hard." "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "I have nothing, I am nothing." Mabel squeezed my hand hard. "Now you listen to me. You are not nothing. You are a child of God and you have value. Don't you ever let anyone tell you different, not your husband, not his friends, not anyone." Tears ran down my face. It had been so long since anyone had said anything kind to me. "I'm going to help you," Mabel continued. "I'm going to give you a job helping me run this boarding house. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest work, and you can stay here as long as you need to get back on your feet." I could not believe what I was hearing. "Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." Mabel smiled. "Because someone did it for me once, a long time ago, and she told me to pass it on when I found someone who needed help. Well, today I found that someone. Today I found you." I worked at that boarding house for the next 2 years. I cleaned rooms. I cooked meals. I washed dishes. It was hard work, but I did not mind. Every day I got a little stronger. Every day I felt a little more like myself. Mabel became like a second mother to me. She taught me things my own mama never had the chance to teach me. How to manage money, how to stand up for myself, how to believe in my own worth. "You're smart, Loretta," she would tell me. "Smarter than you know. You just never had anyone believe in you before." She was right. No one had ever believed in me, not Darryl, not even myself. But Mabel believed in me, and slowly I started to believe in myself too. During those 2 years, I never contacted Darryl. I never called my sisters. I never reached out to anyone from my old life. As far as they knew, I had disappeared off the face of the earth. I thought about them sometimes. I wondered if Darryl even noticed I was gone. I wondered if he reported me missing or if he just went on with his life like I had never existed. Part of me wanted to call him, to tell him I was okay, to hear his voice one more time. But every time I thought about it, I remembered what he said at that rest stop. Maybe she won't come back at all. That would make my life a lot easier. So I stayed away, I stayed hidden, I stayed gone. But I never forgot. I never stopped being angry, and I never stopped planning my revenge. I just needed the right opportunity. And on my 3rd year away from Memphis, that opportunity finally came. It started with a letter from a lawyer in Tennessee, a letter that would change my life forever. It was addressed to Loretta Me Johnson. Somehow, after all this time, someone had found me. I opened the letter with shaking hands, and when I read what was inside, I had to sit down because my legs could not hold me anymore. My mama had been keeping a secret so big that it was about to turn my whole world upside down. The letter shook in my hands as I read it again and again. I could not believe what I was seeing. The words did not make sense. They could not be real. But they were real, every single word. The letter was from a lawyer named Harold Patterson. He worked at a big law firm in Nashville, Tennessee, and he had been searching for me for almost 3 years. "Dear Mrs. Loretta Me Johnson," the letter said, "I am writing to inform you of a matter of great importance regarding the estate of your late mother, Bessie Me Johnson. After an extensive search, we have finally located you. Please contact our office immediately to discuss your inheritance." Inheritance? My mama did not have anything to leave anyone. We grew up poor. She worked as a housekeeper her whole life. She could barely afford to pay her rent and buy groceries. What inheritance could she possibly have left behind? I showed the letter to Mabel. She read it slowly, her eyes getting wider with each line. "Child," she said when she finished, "you need to call this lawyer right now." I was scared. What if it was a trick? What if Darryl had somehow found me and was trying to lure me back? What if this was all some kind of cruel joke? But Mabel convinced me to make the call. She sat right next to me while I dialed the number with trembling fingers. A secretary answered and put me through to Mr. Patterson. His voice was deep and professional. "Mrs. Johnson, I am so glad you finally received my letter," he said. "I have been trying to locate you for nearly 3 years. Your husband told us you had passed away, but we could never find a death certificate." My heart stopped. My husband said I was dead. "Yes, ma'am. He came to our office shortly after your mother passed. He said you had died in an accident and that he was your next of kin. He tried to claim your inheritance." I felt sick to my stomach. Darryl had told people I was dead. He had tried to steal whatever my mama left me. How could someone be so evil? "What inheritance?" I asked. My mama didn't have any money. Mr. Patterson was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Mrs. Johnson, your mother was the sole heir to her uncle's estate. His name was Roosevelt Johnson. He passed away about 15 years ago, but his estate was tied up in legal matters for many years. By the time everything was settled, your mother was very sick. She signed papers leaving everything to you, but she passed away before we could finalize the transfer." My head was spinning. "I don't understand. What estate? How much money are we talking about?" "Mrs. Johnson, your great-uncle Roosevelt was a very successful businessman. He owned property all over Tennessee and invested wisely in the stock market. After taxes and legal fees, your inheritance comes to approximately $4.7 million. I dropped the phone. Mabel picked it up and kept talking to the lawyer while I sat there in shock. $4.7 million. My mama had left me almost $5 million, and Darryl had tried to steal it by telling everyone I was dead. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I had to prove I was alive. I had to show documents and sign papers. I had to talk to lawyers and bankers and all kinds of people I had never met before. Mabel helped me through all of it. She came with me to Nashville. She held my hand in the lawyer's office. She made sure nobody took advantage of me. "This is your blessing, Loretta," she told me. "The Lord has given you a second chance. Don't waste it." I did not plan to waste it. When all the paperwork was done, I had a bank account with more money than I had ever dreamed of. I could do anything I wanted, go anywhere I wanted, be anyone I wanted. But first, I had to decide what to do about Darryl. Part of me wanted to go straight back to Memphis. I wanted to walk into our old house and show him that I was alive. I wanted to see the look on his face when he realized I knew what he had done. I wanted to destroy him right then and there. But Mabel talked me out of it. "Revenge is a dish best served cold," she said. "If you go back now, all angry and hurt, you'll make mistakes. You'll show your hand too soon, and that man will find a way to wiggle out of what he's done." She was right. Darryl was sneaky. He had lied to lawyers and tried to steal my inheritance. If I confronted him now, he would just lie some more. He would make excuses. He might even try to take my money somehow. No, I needed to be smart about this. I needed to plan carefully. I needed to become someone so powerful that Darryl could never hurt me again. So that is exactly what I did. I used some of my inheritance to go back to school. I enrolled in a community college in New Mexico and got my associate degree. Then I transferred to a university in California and got my bachelor's degree in business. Then I kept going and got my master's degree. It took me 6 years. 6 years of studying and working and pushing myself harder than I ever had before. But when I was done, I had something nobody could ever take away from me: an education. During those 6 years, I also started investing my money. I bought property. I started small businesses. I made smart decisions and watched my fortune grow. By the time I was 40 years old, I was worth over $20 million. I owned a beautiful home in California. I drove a luxury car. I wore designer clothes. I had everything I had ever dreamed of and more. But I was not done yet, not by a long shot. I kept tabs on Darryl over the years. I hired a private investigator to watch him and report back to me. I wanted to know everything about his life. What I learned made me smile. After I disappeared, Darryl had gone on like nothing happened. He told everyone I had run off with another man. He played the victim, saying his wife had abandoned him. People actually felt sorry for him. He tried to get my inheritance, but the lawyers figured out I was not really dead. Without a death certificate, he could not claim anything. So he went back to his old life, working as a truck driver and hanging out with his terrible friends. But things did not go well for Darryl. He lost his job after getting caught stealing from his company. He got into debt from gambling. He borrowed money from the wrong people and could not pay it back. By the time 10 years had passed, Darryl was broke and desperate. He had lost our old house. He was living in a rundown apartment on the bad side of Memphis. He was a shadow of the man he used to be. Part of me felt satisfied knowing he was suffering, but another part of me knew it was not enough. He had not suffered because of me. He had suffered because of his own bad choices. That was not revenge. That was just karma. I wanted him to know that I had won. I wanted him to see what I had become. I wanted to look into his eyes and watch him realize that the woman he threw away like garbage had become more successful than he could ever dream of being. But I was patient. I waited for the perfect moment. That moment came 18 years after he left me on the side of that highway. I got a call from my private investigator one morning. He sounded excited. "Mrs. Johnson, you're going to want to hear this," he said. "Kevin Marshall is turning 58 years old. He's throwing himself a huge birthday party at a fancy hotel in Memphis. And guess who's going to be there?" "Darryl," I said. "That's right. Darryl, Jerome, Raymond, and about 200 other people. It's going to be the social event of the year in Memphis." I smiled. This was it. This was my chance. "Find out everything about that party," I told him. "I want to know the date, the time, the location, everything, and find out how I can get invited." It turned out that getting invited was easier than I thought. Kevin had become a successful real estate developer over the years. He was always looking for wealthy investors to partner with on his projects. When he heard that a mysterious California businesswoman wanted to meet him, he was more than happy to add her to the guest list. He had no idea that the businesswoman was me. I spent the next 2 months preparing for the party. I bought a stunning red dress that cost more than Daryl's entire apartment. I got my hair done at the best salon in Los Angeles. I bought jewelry that sparkled like stars. I also did something else, something that would make my revenge complete. I did research on Kevin, Jerome, and Raymond. I learned about their businesses, their families, their secrets. I discovered that they all had dirty laundry they did not want anyone to know about. Kevin had been cheating on his wife for years. I had photographs to prove it. Jerome had a gambling problem and owed money to some very dangerous people. I had records of all his debts. Raymond had been stealing from his own company for over a decade. I had documents that showed every dollar he had taken. These men had laughed at me when I was at my lowest. They had helped my husband abandon me on the side of the road. Now, I had the power to destroy every single one of them. But I was not going to do it all at once. No, I was going to take my time. I was going to enjoy every moment of their downfall. The night of the party finally arrived. I flew to Memphis on my private plane. Yes, I had a private plane now. I had come a long way from the scared woman who walked along the highway with $20 in her pocket. I checked into the best hotel in the city. I took a long bath. I did my makeup carefully. I put on my red dress and my sparkling jewelry. Then I looked at myself in the mirror. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. She was confident. She was powerful. She was beautiful. She was everything Daryl said I would never be. "This is for you, Mama," I whispered, "and this is for me." Then I headed to the party. The hotel ballroom was decorated like something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. White roses were everywhere. A live band played smooth jazz in the corner. Waiters in white jackets carried trays of champagne and fancy appetizers. I walked in with my head held high. People turned to look at me. They whispered to each other, wondering who I was. I could feel their eyes on me, curious and admiring. I smiled. Let them look, let them wonder. Soon they would all know exactly who I was. I got a glass of champagne and started walking around the room. I was looking for one person, one face I had not seen in 18 years. And then I found him. Daryl was standing by the bar with Kevin, Jerome, and Raymond. They were all older now, grayer and heavier, but I recognized them immediately. How could I forget the faces of the men who had destroyed my life? Daryl looked terrible. His clothes were cheap and did not fit well. His face was lined with wrinkles. His eyes looked tired and sad. He was a broken man. I could see it from across the room. But he was laughing. He was laughing and drinking and pretending everything was fine, just like he always did. I felt my heart beating fast. My hands were shaking a little, but I was not scared. I was excited. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment I had planned for 18 long years. I started walking toward them. Kevin saw me first. His eyes lit up when he saw the expensive dress and jewelry. He probably thought I was a rich investor he could charm. "Well, hello there," he said with a big smile. "I don't think we've met. I'm Kevin Marshall. Welcome to my party." I smiled back at him. "Thank you for having me. You have a lovely venue here." "And you have a lovely dress," Kevin said. He was looking at me like I was a piece of meat. Some things never changed. "I don't believe I caught your name." "My name," I paused for a moment, enjoying the suspense. "My name is Loretta Johnson." Nothing happened at first. The name did not mean anything to Kevin. Why would it? I was just some woman Daryl used to be married to. Just some nobody they had abandoned on the side of the road 18 years ago. But then Daryl looked up. He looked at my face, really looked at it. And I watched as the color drained from his cheeks. "Loretta," he whispered. His voice was so quiet I could barely hear it over the music. "Loretta, is that you?" I took a sip of my champagne and smiled at him. "Hello, Daryl. It's been a long time." Kevin looked confused. "Wait, you know this woman?" Daryl did not answer. He was staring at me like he was seeing a ghost. And in a way, he was. He had told everyone I was dead. He had probably convinced himself it was true. But I was not dead. I was very much alive. and I was standing right in front of him, looking better than I had ever looked in my life. "I don't understand," Darrell said. His voice was shaking. "Where have you been? What happened to you?" I laughed. It was a cold laugh, nothing like the warm giggles I used to give him when we were first married. "What happened to me?" I repeated. "You happened to me, Darrell. You and your friends left me stranded in another state with no money and no way to get home. Don't you remember? You said, 'Let's see if she can make it back.' Well, I made it back. It just took me a little longer than expected." Kevin's smile was gone now. He was starting to realize who I was. His face was turning red. "Now hold on," he said. "That was just a joke. We were going to come back for you." "A joke?" My voice was like ice. "You left me on the side of the highway in Nevada. You canceled my hotel room. You gave me $20 and told me to figure it out. Does that sound like a joke to you?" People around us were starting to notice the commotion. They were turning to look, wondering what was going on. Jerome stepped forward. "Look, lady. I don't know what you want, but this isn't the time or place for this." "Oh, I disagree," I said. "I think this is the perfect time and place. You see, I've been waiting 18 years for this moment. 18 years to tell you all exactly what I think of you. 18 years to show you what happens when you mess with the wrong woman." Raymond tried to laugh it off. "Come on, this is crazy. So we played a little prank on you. That was almost 20 years ago. Let it go." "A prank?" I stepped closer to him. "I walked for days. I slept in bus stations. I had nothing to eat. I thought I was going to die. And you call that a prank?" The room was getting quieter now. More people were watching us. The music seemed far away. Darrell finally found his voice. "Loretta, please, can we talk about this somewhere private? You're making a scene." "Making a scene?" I laughed again. "Oh, Darrell, I haven't even started making a scene yet." I reached into my purse and pulled out a thick envelope. I had been carrying it with me all night, waiting for this moment. "Do you know what this is?" I asked, holding up the envelope. "This is evidence. Evidence of every dirty secret you and your friends have been hiding all these years." Kevin's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the affairs, Kevin. The women you've been sneaking around with behind your wife's back. I have photographs, dates, names, everything." I turned to Jerome. "And I'm talking about your gambling debts, Jerome. The money you owe to people who don't like to wait. I wonder what they would do if they knew where to find you." Then I looked at Raymond. "And let's not forget about you, Raymond. Stealing from your own company for years. I have the financial records, every single transaction." The three men looked like they were about to faint. They had not expected this. They thought I was still that weak, scared woman they had pushed around all those years ago. But I was not that woman anymore. I turned back to Darrell. He was staring at me with his mouth open. He looked like a fish out of water, gasping for air. "And you, Darrell, my dear husband." I said the words like they were poison. "You told the lawyers I was dead. You tried to steal my inheritance. Did you really think you would get away with it?" Darrell shook his head. "I can explain. It wasn't like that. I thought you were really dead. I thought something had happened to you." "Liar," my voice cracked like a whip. "You hoped I was dead. You wanted me to disappear so you could take my mama's money. But guess what? I'm alive. And I have every penny of that inheritance, plus a whole lot more." I spread my arms wide, showing off my expensive dress and jewelry. "Look at me, Darrell. Really look at me. I'm worth more money than you will ever see in your miserable life. I own businesses. I own property. I have everything. And you have nothing, because that's exactly what you deserve." The room was completely silent now. Everyone was watching. Everyone was listening. Darrell's eyes filled with tears. "Loretta, please. I'm sorry, I made mistakes. I was young and stupid. Can't we just put this behind us and start over?" I stared at him for a long moment. This man who had broken my heart. This man who had thrown me away like garbage. This man who had tried to steal from me even after he thought I was dead. "Start over," I said quietly. "No, Darrell, we are not starting over. We are finished. We have been finished for 18 years. I just came here tonight to make sure you know it." I tossed the envelope at his feet. Papers scattered across the floor. Photographs, documents, evidence of all their crimes. That's a copy, I said. I have the originals in a safe place. If any of you try to come after me, if you try to hurt me or threaten me in any way, everything in that envelope goes to the police, and to the newspapers, and to your wives and families. Do you understand? They all nodded. They were too scared to speak. I finished my champagne and set the glass on a nearby table. Then I looked at the crowd of people watching us. I'm sorry to interrupt your party, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. But I had some unfinished business to take care of. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. Then I turned and walked toward the door. I was almost there when I heard Darryl's voice one more time. Loretta, wait. I stopped but did not turn around. Please, he said. His voice was broken and desperate. I know I don't deserve it, but please, give me another chance. I still love you. I always loved you. I turned around slowly. I looked at the pathetic man standing in the middle of that fancy ballroom. The man who had once made me feel so small. The man who had almost destroyed me. You want to know something, Darryl? I said. For years, I dreamed about this moment. I imagined what it would feel like to finally confront you, to make you pay for what you did to me. I paused. But now that I'm here, I realize something. You're not worth my anger. You're not worth my hate. You're not worth anything at all. You're just a sad, broken man who will spend the rest of his life knowing that he threw away the best thing that ever happened to him. I smiled, not a mean smile, not a triumphant smile, just a peaceful smile. Goodbye, Darryl. I hope you find peace someday, but I won't be there to see it. Then I walked out the door and into the night. But my revenge was not complete. Not yet. What happened in that ballroom was just the beginning. Because while I was giving my speech, something else was happening. Something I had planned very carefully. Something that would destroy Darryl Thompson completely. And he had no idea it was coming. I walked out of that ballroom feeling like I was floating on air. My heart was pounding. My hands were still shaking, but I felt more alive than I had felt in years. The valet brought my rental car around. It was a sleek black Mercedes, the kind of car I could only dream about when I was married to Darryl. I tipped the young man $100 and watched his eyes go wide with surprise. Thank you, ma'am, he said. Have a wonderful night. I smiled at him. Oh, I already have. I drove back to my hotel, but I did not go to sleep. I was too excited, too full of energy. Instead, I sat by the window and looked out at the Memphis skyline. This city used to feel like a prison to me. Every street corner reminded me of some painful memory. The diner where I worked for years. The courthouse where I married Darryl. The little apartment where I cried myself to sleep so many nights. But now Memphis looked different. It looked smaller, less scary, like something I had outgrown a long time ago. My phone buzzed. It was a text message from a number I did not recognize. It's done. Check your email. I smiled and opened my laptop. There was a new message in my inbox from someone named Friend. I opened it and started reading. You say, what happened at the party was only part of my plan. The public confrontation was satisfying, yes, but it was also a distraction. While everyone was watching me throw evidence at Darryl's feet, something else was happening behind the scenes. Something much more devastating. I had hired a team of lawyers months ago, the best lawyers money could buy. I gave them one job: find every legal way to make Darryl Thompson's life miserable. And they found plenty. First, there was the matter of my inheritance. When Darryl told the lawyers I was dead, he committed fraud. He signed legal documents saying his wife had passed away. He tried to claim money that was not his. That is a serious crime. My lawyers had prepared a lawsuit against Darryl for fraud and attempted theft. The papers were filed that very night while I was at the party. By the time Darryl woke up the next morning, he would be facing serious legal charges. But that was not all. Remember how I said we never officially got divorced? Well, that meant Darryl and I were still legally married. And in Tennessee, that meant I had certain rights. When Darryl abandoned me on that highway, he also abandoned his marriage. In legal terms, that is called desertion. And desertion is grounds for divorce with full financial penalties against the deserting spouse. My lawyers filed for divorce that night too, but not just any divorce. A divorce that would require Darrell to pay me back for 18 years of emotional suffering. A divorce that would take whatever little money he had left. The email from my friend confirmed that all the papers had been served. Deputies would be knocking on Darrell's door first thing in the morning. He was about to wake up to the worst day of his life. I closed my laptop and laughed out loud. It felt so good to finally have power over the man who had controlled me for so long. But I was not finished yet. Darrell was just one part of my revenge. Kevin, Jerome, and Raymond still needed to pay for what they did. And their punishments were already in motion. The next morning, I woke up early and ordered room service. I sat in bed eating pancakes and watching the local news. I wanted to see if anything interesting was happening in Memphis. I did not have to wait long. Breaking news this morning, the anchor said. Local businessman Kevin Marshall is facing serious allegations of financial misconduct. An anonymous source has provided documents to authorities showing that Marshall may have been involved in fraudulent real estate deals for over a decade. I smiled and took another bite of my pancakes. The news anchor continued. Marshall, who just celebrated his 58th birthday last night at a lavish party, has not yet responded to requests for comment. His wife, Sandra Marshall, was seen leaving their home early this morning with several suitcases. So Kevin's wife had left him. I wondered if she had seen the photographs of her husband with other women. I had made sure copies were delivered to her house last night, right around the time I was confronting Darrell at the party. The news switched to another story. This one was about Jerome. In related news, Memphis police are investigating local contractor Jerome Williams for possible connections to illegal gambling operations. Sources say Williams owes significant debts to known criminals in the area. Jerome was next. The people he owed money to were not the forgiving type. Once they knew the police were sniffing around, they would want their money fast. Jerome was about to have some very unpleasant visitors. Finally, there was Raymond. And in business news, Raymond Carter, CFO of Carter Construction, has been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation into missing company funds. 3 for 3, all of Darrell's friends were going down at the same time. By the end of the week, they would all be ruined, their careers destroyed, their families broken, their reputations in tatters. Just like they had tried to do to me. I finished my breakfast and got dressed. I had one more thing to do before I left Memphis, one more person I needed to see. I drove across town to a neighborhood I had not visited in many years. The houses here were small and old, but the yards were neat and the streets were clean. This was where working folks lived, people who did not have much but took pride in what they had. I parked in front of a little yellow house with a white fence. There were flowers in the window boxes and a welcome mat by the door. It looked warm and inviting. I walked up the path and knocked on the door. A woman answered. She was about my age, maybe a little younger. She had kind eyes and a worried expression on her face. "Can I help you?" she asked. "Are you Denise Thompson?" I asked. The woman's eyes went wide. "Yes, how do you know my name?" "My name is Loretta Johnson. I used to be married to your brother Darrell." Denise stared at me like she was seeing a ghost. "Loretta, but Darrell said you were. He said you." "Dead," I finished for her. "Yes, I know what Darrell said, but as you can see, I am very much alive." Denise put her hand over her heart. She looked like she might faint. "Maybe I should come inside," I said gently. "I think we have a lot to talk about." Denise nodded slowly and stepped aside to let me in. Her house was small but cozy. There were family photographs on every wall. I recognized some of the faces. Darrell's mother, who had passed away a few years after I disappeared. Darrell's father, who I had never met because he left when Darrell was young. And Denise herself, smiling in pictures with children and grandchildren. "Please sit down," Denise said. She still looked shocked. Can I get you some water, coffee? Water would be nice, thank you. She disappeared into the kitchen. I could hear her taking deep breaths, trying to calm herself down. When she came back with 2 glasses of water, her hands were shaking. I don't understand, she said, sitting across from me. Where have you been all these years? What happened to you? So I told her everything. About the trip to Las Vegas. About being abandoned on the highway. About walking for days with no food or money. About Mabel and the boarding house. About my inheritance and my education and my businesses. Denise listened without saying a word. Tears streamed down her face as I talked. By the time I finished, she was openly sobbing. I am so sorry, she said. I had no idea. Darryl told us you ran off with another man. He said you abandoned him. He played the victim for years. I believed him. We all believed him. It's not your fault, I said. Darryl is a very good liar. Denise wiped her eyes with a tissue. I always liked you, Loretta. You were so sweet and kind. When Darryl said you left, it never made sense to me, but he was my brother. I wanted to believe him. I understand. Family is family. Denise looked at me with red, puffy eyes. Why are you here? After everything my brother did to you, why would you come to see me? I took a deep breath. This was the part I had been thinking about for weeks, the part of my plan that had nothing to do with revenge. I came because I wanted you to know the truth, I said, and I came because I need your help with something. My help? What could I possibly help you with? I reached into my purse and pulled out a photograph. It was old and worn, with creases from being folded too many times. I handed it to Denise. She looked at it and gasped. The photograph showed a young boy, about 5 years old. He had big brown eyes and a bright smile. He was sitting on a swing in a park, laughing at whoever was taking the picture. Who is this? Denise whispered. His name is David, I said. He's my son. Denise looked up at me in shock. Your son, but how, when? I was pregnant when Darryl left me on that highway. I didn't know it at the time. I found out a few weeks later, after I had already decided never to go back to Memphis. The truth I had been hiding for 18 years was finally out. I had a child, Darryl's child, a son he never knew existed. Denise stared at the photograph. Her hands were trembling. David is 17 now, I continued. He's smart and kind and hardworking. He's everything his father never was. I raised him by myself, and I am proud of the young man he has become. Does Darryl know? Denise asked. No, and I never planned to tell him, but then something happened, something that changed my mind. I paused, gathering my thoughts. A few months ago, David came to me with questions. He wanted to know about his father, where he was, who he was, why he wasn't part of our lives. I had always told David that his father was gone, but I never gave him details. Now he wanted the truth. Denise nodded slowly. What did you tell him? I told him everything. About Darryl, about how we met, about how he treated me, about being abandoned on the highway. David listened to the whole story, and do you know what he said when I finished? What? He said he wanted to meet his father anyway. He said everyone deserves a chance to explain themselves. He said maybe Darryl had changed. Maybe he was sorry for what he did. I laughed softly. My son has a bigger heart than I do. I wanted to protect him from Darryl. I wanted to keep them apart forever. But David convinced me that he needed to know his father, even if his father was a terrible person. Denise set down the photograph. So that's why you're here. You want to introduce David to Darryl. Eventually, yes, but not yet. First, I needed to come back and face Darryl myself. I needed to show him that he didn't break me. I needed to take back my power before I could even think about letting him near my son. And the lawsuit, the divorce papers, the things on the news about Kevin and Jerome and Raymond. I smiled. Those were for me. Those were my revenge. But now that it's done, I need to think about what's best for David, and that's where you come in. Denise looked confused. Me, what can I do? I want you to talk to Darryl. I want you to tell him about David. I want you to see how he reacts. If he's truly sorry for what he did, if he's willing to change, then maybe I'll consider letting him meet his son. But if he's still the same selfish, cruel man he was 18 years ago, then David never needs to know him. Denise was quiet for a long time. She picked up the photograph again and studied it carefully. "He looks like Darryl," she said finally. "The eyes, the smile, he looks just like Darryl did when he was young." "I know. It's been hard sometimes, seeing my ex-husband's face in my son. But David is his own person. He's not responsible for what Darryl did." Denise nodded. "You're right, and you're also very generous. Most women in your situation would never give Darryl another chance." "I'm not doing it for Darryl. I'm doing it for David. He deserves to know where he comes from, even if where he comes from is broken." Denise reached across and took my hand. "I'll talk to him, I'll tell him about David, and I'll let you know what happens." "Thank you, Denise. That's all I ask." I stood up to leave, but Denise stopped me. "Loretta, wait. There's something you should know." I turned back to her. "What is it?" Denise's face was serious. "Darryl is not well. He's been sick for the past year. The doctors say it's his heart. All those years of drinking and bad living finally caught up with him." I felt something twist in my chest. Not sadness exactly, not happiness either, just something complicated that I couldn't name. "How bad is it?" I asked. "Bad. The doctors say he might only have a year or two left, maybe less." I stood there in silence, processing this new information. Darryl was dying. The man who had ruined my life, who had thrown me away like garbage, who had tried to steal my inheritance and told everyone I was dead. That man was dying. Part of me felt like he deserved it. After everything he had done, maybe this was God's way of punishing him. But another part of me felt something else, something that surprised me. I felt sorry for him. Not sorry enough to forgive him, not sorry enough to forget what he did, but sorry enough to understand that revenge was no longer my most important goal. David was more important. My son needed to meet his father before it was too late. Even if Darryl was a terrible person, David deserved the chance to say goodbye. "Thank you for telling me," I said to Denise. "This changes things." "What will you do?" I took a deep breath. "I need to think about it, but I'll be in touch, soon." I left Denise's house with my mind spinning. I had come to Memphis for revenge, and I had gotten it. Darryl and his friends were ruined. Their lives were falling apart. I had won. But now everything felt different. The victory felt hollow somehow. What was the point of destroying a dying man? What satisfaction could I get from taking revenge on someone who was already being punished by fate? I drove back to my hotel and sat in the parking lot for a long time, just thinking. Then I made a decision. I pulled out my phone and made a call. "Hello," said a young man's voice on the other end. "David, it's Mom. I need you to come to Memphis. There's someone you need to meet." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Are you sure?" David asked. "I thought you said you needed more time." "I did, but things have changed. Your father is sick, David. He might not have much time left. If you want to meet him, it has to be soon." Another pause. Then David spoke, his voice quiet but determined. "I'll book a flight tonight. I can be there by tomorrow morning." "Okay, I'll pick you up at the airport, and David." "Yes, Mom." "I love you. No matter what happens with your father, that will never change." "I love you too, Mom. See you tomorrow." I hung up the phone and leaned back in my seat. Tomorrow, my son would meet his father for the first time. Tomorrow, everything would change again. But I had no idea just how much. Because when David arrived in Memphis, he brought news of his own. News that would shake me to my very core. News about a secret he had been keeping from me for months. And when I heard what it was, I realized that my revenge story was not over yet. It was only just beginning. I barely slept that night. My mind kept racing with thoughts about what would happen when David met Darryl. Would Darryl be sorry? Would he try to make things right? Or would he be the same selfish man he had always been? I was also thinking about what Denise had told me. Darryl was dying. He might only have a year or two left, maybe less. That changed everything. For 18 years, I had dreamed about making Darryl suffer. I wanted him to feel the same pain he had caused me. I wanted him to know what it was like to have nothing and no one. But now that I had gotten my revenge, I did not feel as happy as I thought I would. I felt empty, tired, like I had been carrying a heavy weight for so long that I did not know how to put it down. Maybe it was time to let go. Maybe it was time to stop living in the past and start thinking about the future. My future, David's future. The next morning, I drove to the airport to pick up my son. I stood at the arrival's gate, watching people stream out with their suitcases and bags. My heart was beating fast. I had not seen David in 3 weeks, and I missed him terribly. Then I saw him, my beautiful boy. He was tall and handsome, with warm brown skin and his father's eyes. But unlike Darryl, David's eyes were kind and gentle. There was no coldness in them, no cruelty. I had raised him right. Despite everything, I had raised him right. "Mom," David called out when he saw me. He rushed over and wrapped me in a big hug. I held him tight, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne. "I missed you," I said. "I missed you too." He pulled back and looked at me with concern. "Are you okay? You sounded strange on the phone last night." "I'm fine, just a lot going on. Come on, let's get your bags and go to the hotel. We have a lot to talk about." We drove to the hotel in mostly silence. David could tell I had a lot on my mind, and he did not push me to talk. That was one of the things I loved about him. He always knew when to give me space. When we got to my hotel room, I ordered some food from room service. We sat at the little table by the window, eating sandwiches and looking out at the Memphis skyline. "So," David said finally, "tell me everything. What happened at the party? Did you see him?" I told David about the confrontation at Kevin's birthday party. I told him about throwing the evidence at Darryl's feet. I told him about the lawsuits and the news stories about Kevin, Jerome, and Raymond. I told him about visiting Denise and learning that Darryl was sick. David listened carefully, nodding sometimes but not interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "That's a lot," he said finally. "Yes, it is." "How do you feel?" I thought about the question. How did I feel? I was not sure anymore. "I thought I would feel victorious," I admitted. "I thought destroying Darryl and his friends would make me happy, but now I just feel tired. Like I've been running a race for 18 years and I finally crossed the finish line, but there's no prize waiting for me." David reached across the table and took my hand. "Maybe the prize isn't about them. Maybe the prize is that you survived. You built an amazing life. You raised me. That's the real victory, Mom, not destroying them, surviving them." Tears filled my eyes. When had my son become so wise? "You're right," I said. "You're absolutely right." David smiled. Then his expression changed. He looked nervous all of a sudden, uncomfortable. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you," he said. My heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" David took a deep breath. "I haven't been completely honest with you about why I wanted to come to Memphis, about why I wanted to meet my father." I felt a chill run down my spine. "What do you mean?" David pulled his hand away from mine. He stood up and walked to the window, his back to me. "A few months ago, I got a message on social media," he said. "It was from a woman I didn't know. Her name was Keisha Williams." The name meant nothing to me. Who is she? David turned around to face me. His eyes were full of emotion. "She's my sister, Mom, my half-sister. Darryl had another child after you left, a daughter. She's 15 years old." The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. "What?" I whispered. "Her name is Keisha. Her mother was a woman named Tamara. Darryl was with her for a few years after you disappeared. They never got married, and he left them too eventually, just like he left you." I could not breathe. Darryl had another child. David had a sister he never knew about. My whole world was turning upside down again. "How did she find you?" I managed to ask. "She's been searching for years. She knew Darryl had been married before her mother. She found some old records and started digging. Eventually, she found me on social media and sent me a message. Why didn't you tell me? David's face was full of guilt. I wanted to. I tried to so many times, but I knew how much you hated Darryl. I knew how much pain he caused you. I was afraid you would be angry. I was afraid you would try to stop me from meeting her. David, I did not know what to say. I'm sorry, Mom. I should have told you. But Keisha and I have been talking for months now. We've become close. She's a good person. She's smart and kind, and she's had a really hard life. Hard how? David sat back down across from me. His expression was serious. Darryl abandoned Keisha and her mother when Keisha was only 3 years old. Her mother struggled to raise her alone. They were poor. They moved around a lot. Tamara got sick a few years ago and passed away. Now Keisha is living with her grandmother, who can barely afford to take care of her. My heart ached for this girl I had never met. She was a victim of Darryl too, just like me, just like David. Where is she now? I asked. She's here, in Memphis. She lives on the other side of town with her grandmother. I stared at David in shock. She's here, right now. David nodded. I wanted you to meet her, Mom. I wanted you to see that she's not the enemy. She's just a kid who got dealt a bad hand in life, just like we did. I stood up and walked to the window. My mind was racing. This was too much. Too many surprises in too short a time. I had come to Memphis for revenge. I had gotten it. But now I was discovering that Darryl's destruction had spread far beyond just him. There were innocent people caught in the crossfire. A 15-year-old girl who never asked for any of this. Mom, David's voice was tentative. Are you okay? I turned around and looked at my son. My beautiful, kind, wise son. I want to meet her, I said. David's face lit up. Really? Yes, if she's your sister, then she's family, and family takes care of each other. David jumped up and hugged me tight. Thank you, Mom. Thank you so much. That afternoon, we drove to Keisha's grandmother's house. It was in a rough neighborhood on the outskirts of Memphis. The houses were old and run down. Some had boarded-up windows. Others had junk in the yards. Keisha's grandmother lived in a small brick house at the end of a dead-end street. The paint was peeling, and the roof looked like it needed repairs. But there were flowers in the front yard and a welcome mat by the door. Someone was trying to make it feel like home. David knocked on the door. A moment later, it opened. An old woman stood in the doorway. She was small and frail, with gray hair and tired eyes. But when she saw David, her face broke into a warm smile. David, you made it. She pulled him into a hug. Hi, Mrs. Robinson, David said. This is my mother, Loretta. The old woman turned to look at me. Her eyes went wide with surprise. So you're Loretta, she said slowly. I've heard a lot about you. All bad, I'm sure, I said with a small smile. Mrs. Robinson shook her head. No, child, not all bad. Keisha talks about you like you're some kind of hero, a woman who escaped a bad man and made something of herself. I did not know what to say. I had never thought of myself as a hero. Please come in, Mrs. Robinson said. Stepping aside, Keisha is in her room. She's been nervous all day about meeting you. We walked into the small house. It was clean but cramped. The furniture was old and worn. There were pictures on the walls of a younger Mrs. Robinson, a woman I assumed was Tamara, and a little girl with big brown eyes. Keisha. Mrs. Robinson went to get her granddaughter while David and I sat on the couch. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps coming down the hallway. Then Keisha appeared. She was beautiful, tall and slim with long braids and smooth brown skin. She had Darryl's eyes just like David, but there was something else in her face, a sadness, a wariness, the look of someone who had been hurt too many times. Hi, she said shyly. Hi, Keisha, I said. It's nice to finally meet you. Keisha stood there awkwardly, not sure what to do, so I did something that surprised even myself. I stood up, walked over to her and hugged her. At first, Keisha stiffened. She was not used to affection. She did not know how to respond. But then slowly she relaxed. Her arms came up and wrapped around me, and she started to cry. "It's okay," I whispered. "It's okay, baby girl, I'm here now." We stood there for a long time, holding each other. Two strangers connected by pain and blood, and a man who had failed them both. When we finally pulled apart, Keisha wiped her eyes and laughed nervously. "Sorry," she said. "I don't usually cry like that." "Don't apologize," I said. "Sometimes crying is exactly what we need." We sat down together, and Keisha told me her story. About growing up without a father. About watching her mother struggle to make ends meet. About losing her mother to cancer 2 years ago. About living with her grandmother on a fixed income. It broke my heart to hear it. This girl had done nothing wrong. She was just an innocent child who happened to have Darrell Thompson for a father. "I'm going to help you," I said when she finished. "Both of you." Keisha looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean I'm going to make sure you're taken care of. I'm going to pay for your grandmother's house to be fixed up. I'm going to set up a college fund for you. I'm going to make sure you have everything you need to build a good life." Mrs. Robinson started crying. Keisha stared at me in disbelief. "Why would you do that?" Keisha asked. "You don't even know me." "Because you're David's sister, and because none of this is your fault. You didn't choose Darrell for a father. Neither did David. Neither did I, but we can choose to be there for each other now. We can choose to be a family." Keisha threw her arms around me again. "Thank you," she sobbed. "Thank you so much." That night, we all had dinner together. David, Keisha, Mrs. Robinson, and me. We talked and laughed and shared stories. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a family again. The next day, it was time to face Darrell. Denise had called to tell me he was ready to meet us. She said he had cried all night when she told him about David. He said he wanted to apologize. He wanted to make things right. I did not believe him. Darrell had lied too many times for me to trust anything he said. But I had promised David a chance to meet his father, so I would keep that promise. We drove to Darrell's apartment. It was in a rundown building on the wrong side of town. The elevators were broken, so we had to walk up 3 flights of stairs. The hallways smelled like mold and cigarette smoke. When we reached his door, I hesitated. "You don't have to come in," David said. "I can do this alone." I shook my head. "No, I've come this far, I need to see it through." I knocked on the door. A moment later, it opened. Darrell stood there, looking like a ghost of the man I had married. He had lost so much weight that his clothes hung off him like rags. His face was gray and hollow. His eyes were sunken and rimmed with red. He looked like he was already dying. "Loretta," he said, his voice was weak and raspy. "You came." "I came for David," I said coldly. "Not for you." Darrell nodded. He understood. Then his eyes moved to David, and something changed in his face. His hard expression softened. Tears started rolling down his cheeks. "David," he whispered. "My son, my boy." David stood there stiffly. He did not know how to react. Can I hug you?" Darrell asked. David looked at me. I nodded slightly. He stepped forward and let Darrell wrap his thin arms around him. Darrell sobbed into David's shoulder. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know about you, if I had known." "If you had known what?" I interrupted. "You would have been a good father, like you were to Keisha." Darrell pulled back from David. He looked at me with shame in his eyes. "You know about Keisha?" "Yes, I met her yesterday. She's a wonderful girl. No thanks to you." Darrell hung his head. I know I failed everyone. I failed you. I failed Tamara. I failed Keisha. And I failed the son I never knew I had." "You did more than fail us," I said. "You destroyed us. You threw me away like garbage. You left me to die on the side of the road. And then you tried to steal my inheritance by telling everyone I was dead." Darrell flinched at every word. I know what I did, and there's nothing I can say to make it right, but I want you to know that I've regretted it every single day for 18 years. I laughed bitterly. "You regret it? Is that supposed to make me feel better? Is that supposed to undo all the pain you caused?" "No, nothing can undo it. But I'm dying, Loretta. The doctors say I only have a few months left, And before I go, I need you to know how sorry I am, not because I deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve to hear it." The room was silent. David was watching us both with tears in his eyes. I looked at Darrell, this pathetic, broken man who had once been my husband, this man who had made my life a living nightmare, this man who had abandoned me and tried to erase me from existence. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to tell him his apology meant nothing, to walk out and never look back. But another part of me was tired of being angry, tired of carrying all this hate around, tired of letting Darrell Thompson have any power over my emotions. So I made a choice I never thought I would make. "I forgive you," I said. Darrell's head snapped up. He stared at me in disbelief. "What?" "I forgive you, not because you deserve it, not because what you did was okay, but because I deserve peace. I deserve to let go of this anger and move on with my life." Tears streamed down Darrell's face. "Loretta, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. This forgiveness is not for you, it's for me, and it doesn't change anything. You still have to face the consequences of what you did, the lawsuits, the divorce, all of it, but I won't carry hatred in my heart anymore. I'm done with that." David came over and put his arm around me. "I'm proud of you, Mom." I leaned into my son's embrace. "Thank you, baby." We stayed at Darrell's apartment for another hour. David talked to his father, asking questions about his childhood, his grandparents, his family history. Darrell answered everything honestly. For the first time in his life, he seemed to have nothing to hide. When it was time to leave, Darrell walked us to the door. "Loretta," he said, "can I ask you one more thing?" "What?" "Will you let Keisha know that I'm sorry too? I know she probably hates me, and she has every right to. But I want her to know that I think about her every day, that I wish I had been a better father." I nodded. "I'll tell her, but whether she forgives you or not is her choice." "I understand." Darrell looked at David one more time. "Take care of your mother, son. She's an amazing woman. I was too stupid to see it when I had the chance. Don't make my mistakes." David shook his father's hand. "I won't." Then we left. 3 months later, Darrell Thompson passed away. He died alone in his apartment, surrounded by nothing but regret. Kevin, Jerome, and Raymond had all abandoned him when their own lives fell apart. He had no one at the end. But David went to his funeral. So did Keisha. They stood together at the grave of the man who had fathered them and failed them both. They did not cry for Darrell. They cried for what could have been. I did not go to the funeral. I had already said my goodbye, but I sent flowers, a simple arrangement with a card that said, "Rest in peace." Because that is what I wanted. Peace, for Darrell, for myself, for everyone. 1 year later, David graduated from college with honors. Keisha moved in with me in California so she could attend a good high school. Mrs. Robinson came too, and I set her up in a nice little house next door to mine. We became a family, a strange, broken, beautiful family, connected not by blood alone, but by choice, by love, by the decision to rise above the pain of our past and build something better. I never remarried. I never needed to. I had my children. I had my businesses. I had my beautiful house by the ocean. I had everything I needed. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that scared woman on the highway 18 years ago, the woman who had nothing, the woman who thought her life was over. If I could go back in time, I would tell her to hold on. I would tell her that the worst moment of her life would become the beginning of her best life. I would tell her that she was stronger than she knew. Because she was, I am. My name is Loretta Me Johnson. I was left stranded in another state by a man who was supposed to love me. He laughed and drove away, thinking he had destroyed me. But I survived. I thrived. I became more than he could ever imagine. And in the end, that was the greatest revenge of all. Not the lawsuits, not the public humiliation, not watching him lose everything. The greatest revenge was becoming the woman he said I could never be. Happy, successful, free. That is my story. Thank you for listening. And remember, no matter how dark things seem, no matter how hopeless you feel, you have the power to change your life. You have the strength to rise above your circumstances. You have the ability to write your own ending. Never let anyone tell you different. God bless you all.